Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Elhamdülillahi Rabbil alemin. Ve salatu ve selamu ala seyyidina Muhammedin ve ala alihi ve sahbihi ecma'in. In the name of Allah, the merciful, the compassionate, and from Him do we seek help. All praise be to Allah, the sustainer of all the worlds, and blessings and peace be upon our Master Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and on all his family and companions. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to our virtual Sunday discussion. We are in part 10 inshallah on the topic Brotherhood in Islam. So it's been a while, and inshallah, we have been exploring more about the details on how we can strengthen our brotherhood and find details using the great scholar Bediüzzaman Said Nursi. His work is Risale.
Yeah, we lost voice, I guess.
Mustafa abi, we cannot hear you.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about the technical issue with my microphone. So today I will be, inshallah, moderating the session, and our panelists are Dr. Colin Turner from Durham, UK, and Dr. Harun Prim from North Carolina, US. Inshallah, we will
North Dakota.
North Dakota, sorry, North Dakota, US. So inshallah, we would like to explore more about the topic. And just as a reminder, we would like to ask our also guest speakers, Hikmet Hocam or any brothers who would like to join and also share their contribution. Please, you are more than welcome. And I want to read first, inshallah. We can start from. Okay. So the fourth words from the Damascus sermon, I would like to read it, and inshallah we can come back to the beginning and then share our insights. The fourth word from Damascus sermon. What I am certain of from my experience of social life and have learned from my lifetime of study is the following. The thing most worthy of love is love, and that most deserving of enmity is enmity. That is, love and loving, which render man's social life secure and lead to happiness, are most worthy of love and being loved. Enmity and hostility are ugly and damaging, have overturned man's social life, and more than anything deserve loathing and enmity and to be shunned. Since this truth has been clearly explained in the 22nd letter of the Risale-i-Nur, here we shall point it out only briefly. It is as follows. The time for enmity and hostility has finished. The two world wars have shown how evil, destructive, and what an awesome wrong is enmity. It has become clear that there is no benefit in it at all, in which case, on the condition they are not aggressive, do not let the evils of our enmity attract your enmity. Hell and divine punishment are enough for them. Sometimes man's arrogance and self-worship cause him to be unjustly hostile towards believers without his being aware of it. He supposes himself to be right, but this hostility and enmity is to slight powerful causes of love towards the believers like belief, Islam, and fellow humanity. It is to reduce their value. It is a lunacy like preferring the insignificant causes of enmity to the causes of love, which are as great as a mountain. Since love and enmity are contrary to one another, like light and darkness, they cannot truly combine. The opposite of whichever is predominant in the heart cannot at the same time be truly present. For example, if love is truly present, then enmity will be transformed into pity and compassion. This is the position towards the believers. Or if enmity is truly present in the heart, then love takes on the form of frightened approval, not interfering, and being apparently friendly. This may be the position towards unaggressive people of misguidance. Indeed, the causes of love, like belief, Islam, humanity, and fellow feeling, are strong and luminous chains and immaterial fortresses. One sort of the causes of enmity towards the believers are personal matters, which are like small stones, in which case to nourish true enmity towards a Muslim is a great error. It is like scorning the causes of love, which are as immense as a mountain. In short, love, brotherhood, and affection are basic to Islam and are its bond. The people of enmity resemble a spoiled child who wants to cry. He looks for an excuse, and something as insignificant as a fly's wing becomes the pretext. They resemble too an unfair, pessimistic person who, so long as it is possible to distrust, never thinks favorably. He ignores 10 good deeds due to one bad deed. Fairness and favorable thinking, which mark the Islamic character, reject this. So this was from the Damascus sermon, fourth word. It's a little long, but I would like to go back to the beginning. And I want to ask the initial insights if Kodin Hocam is available or Harun Hocam, who would like to go first? Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but neither one
Okay.
of us wants to say anything.
It's you, Colin Hocam. Please just, we want to
Okay,
listen
since
to you.
okay, Bismillah. This is interesting because at the moment I'm just about to finish the 22nd letter, which, as you know, is on brotherhood. And it resonates very much with the fourth word here from the Damascus sermon. And I've been trying to understand what is at the root cause of our flaws and our deficits and our inabilities when it comes to fostering bonds of brotherhood, when it comes to overlooking internal strife, internal discord, when it comes to actually bringing about a true state of real love, not just pretense. As Ustad says, light and darkness cannot mix without one of them at least losing their natural essences, their essential natures. Actually, they can't blend at all. So love and hatred can't exist in their true forms in the same heart. So at root, the very root cause of our inabilities and all of our problems when it comes to do with social life, lack of brotherhood, lack of unity, discord, resentment, hatred, all of these things, I think at root is our own inabilities as individuals to understand that we don't own anything, because it's almost always the causes for hatred and the causes for discord are either jealousy or greed or various of these other negative traits. This is what I've understood. These are the terms which are brought up most. I mean, apart from things like traits like discord, resentment, there are lots and lots of different traits that he mentions in the 22nd letter. But I think that the base cause of all of these is our unresolved problem of ownership. The fact that we are ajiz and faqir, we say it time and time again, but until we actually internalize that and actually allow it to take root in our souls, in our nafs, then all of it is going to be just surface deep, right? Yes, we have to love our brothers. We have to be one with our brothers, you know, innamal mu'minuna ikhwa, all of this business. But if we still have unresolved issues of ownership, um, then what will happen is at the end, as Ustad says in the 22nd letter, if someone comes and says, look, it's part of my fitra to have this ill will, to have this enmity, and Ustad says, well, if this ill will is hidden and it doesn't show itself, and you have the right intention, then it may be that it won't be harmful. And that is true. What he's actually pointing to here is that we have the problems in our own nafs, which need to be addressed. And if someone is saying, I can't help feeling enmity, then if that is admitted and if that is acknowledged, as he says, it's a kind of repentance. It's a kind of asking for forgiveness. And there may be, a kind of hope that he can reform his nafs. And I think with this particular passage, Ustad is telling us that, look, the first step has to be taken by disavowing your ownership of your own attributes. Because as long as we continue to exercise this phantom, this illusory, this fantasy ownership that we have over our own attributes, then all of the causes for discord, disunity, hatred, and resentment, they will remain. There will be nothing we can do with them until we address the root cause. And I think the root cause is ownership of the divine names. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Colin Hocam, for your contribution. It's very important here to understand the role, like how the ownership plays the role, for our social life, and also, the topic where Ustad is also here underlining is the most worthy of love is love, and that the most deserving of enmity is enmity. And to solve this puzzle, also the key ingredient, as you said, Colin Hocam, is dismantling the ownership. We are not truly the owner of these attributes. Okay. And I would like to ask also Harun Hocam, would you like to add anything on this big
Yeah,
meeting?
thank you, Mustafa. When I hear Hutbe-i Şamiye, Damascus sermon, actually, the first thing flashes in my mind is that Ustad Nursi first firmly established his background. Like I see this piece is followed by Münazarat and Muhakemat, and in my understanding, these are the roots, these are the philosophy he constructed, of course, by understandings of Quran and Sunnah, but he developed his own understanding of life, understanding of society, and more importantly, he developed his kind of epistemology and ontology to understand, what's happening in the world, in the life, and in the hereafter, of course, as a whole. So after this firm establishment, I think he is ready to go and give a domestic sermon. So I find this valuable. Like if I were to hear these wordings from a person who does not have firm background in, society understanding and, perspectives on life and the hereafter, I think this would not make sense to me, or nobody would be affected with this type of sermon, I would say. So in other words, he clearly knows what he's talking about. And particularly when I look at the context, looks like it is, although here it talks about two world wars, when this was given, I think it was only the First World War, not the second one, but most likely this comes with the Turkish translation update in 1950s. But of course, if I'm wrong, just correct me. Like at the time, he was only aware of maybe First World War, at the edge. But he saw all the Ottoman Empire, passing away, and all, this kind of Islamic life, Islamic constitutions, their situations, I think he saw really all the problems, what's happening. And, this fourth word particularly follows after, three words, which are the first one is just stick with Allah's mercy, al-amal, the first one. The second one is, what was that? This don't be desperate, yes. And the third one is sidq, as Kolin Hocam mentioned. Sidq is, the core of everything. So be kind of truthful, trustful, and have everything correct, Like if, as we say, like we say brother, but how do I mean brother? Usually, we are using these words and these apparent communication objects just for the sake of it. So usually, or I can say more for myself or how I feel, all these communication objects are not fulfilled. Like when I ask, "How are you, brother?" Actually, I didn't mean it. It's like, sticking around. And since we are in the context of community, we are just treating, just attaching these words. But instead of this, the third word, like sidq, even the place, like how, to what extent I understand, quote unquote, my brother's real problems facing in this life, how I engage with what he's doing, how I understand with what he's saying, how do I react to what he's expressing different than I have. So all this type of attitudes, understanding, true empathy, um, these are the core of the bonds I think Colin Hocam mentioned. Unless we are at that level, just forming a community that uses, "Hey brother, how are you?" this and that. I think these are very shallow bonds, and they have just face value. So with that, actually, yeah, I just made my introduction to start. Actually, his very first point here is paying attention to attraction and love. And I think this is amazing. Like, he's suggesting a paradigm here. The paradigm is, what I understand from all this piece is, if I have a room to appreciate, to be attracted by anyone, for anything, I have to, or I should use this attraction instead of, generating hatred, enmity, in the first place. And usually when I look at the today's communities, we can clearly see that the stance is a binary world where you have your enemies versus your community, which are your kind of good ones. But this is not the case. The society is mixed up and the communities are mixed up. So here he is positioning us in a place where there really a place exists like that. In other words, once I adopt the love perspective mentioned here, I would appreciate more than I would hate anyone, anything. So he's starting with that, and that strikes me, actually. Yeah, that's, I think, the message I take in the first place.
Thank you very much, Harun Hocam, for the great insights. As you pointed out, I think in around 1950s, probably the Khutbe-i Şamiye is being translated into Turkish, and some edition, I think, is being made. But the original one, I think, Ustad Bediüzzaman Said Nursi gave in Damascus in 1911. But as you said, during these two world wars, um, you know, actually the world tested enmity and hostility, and we saw it how ugly and damaging, like when these attributes are implemented as an application, so it generated a lot of danger, a lot of lost lives, and the societies and this modern system is being actually collapsed when we look at the Europe. But yeah, I mean, but when we do a love and loving, as long as the other side is not interfering or entering to your property or, damaging your life, there might be a certain way of, engagement in a peaceful way. This brings a lot of, let's say, social life improvement and happiness. And we see also this one when people are living together in a harmony and respective way. I think Colin Hocam, you raised your hand. Would you like to add anything?
I wanted to respond to Harun because, first of all, he doesn't come on as often as he used to. So it's,
Yes.
I want to say it's good to see him, first of all. But secondly, what he said reminded me of so many things. The fact that we usually have a surface understanding of this fourth word and also of the brotherhood and sincerity, which was one of the first, I think, to be published. I think maybe Hamid Algar translated them back in the early 70s. I can't remember, or the mid 70s. It was one of the first books, individual treatises. I think it was a combination of the 22nd letter and another treatise, and it was published as Brotherhood and Sincerity. And when we started our dars at university, as undergraduates, uh, our ustad at the time said, this is supposed to be read every 2 weeks. So I read it, and it resonated with me on a macro scale, right? Generally, I saw, yeah, these are very virtuous suggestions, very virtuous statements. But I think the key word that Harun used was sidq. In the Damascus sermon, there is a section, I think he said, on sidq. To be sadiq, it doesn't just mean being truthful, it means being sincere. So how can I be sincere about um, loving my enemy, or loving others, and having a mudara towards my enemy, tolerance and forgiving and all of these things, if I don't understand what love is, and if I don't really get the meaning of what it is to love. What it is to love means basically to love the names of Allah for His sake. Whereas when I read this as an undergraduate, everything I loved was for its own sake. I saw things in a very manna esmi way. And if you do see things in this self-referential way, then this doesn't make much sense to you. It's just so many nice sentences stitched together, so many platitudes. Um, Obviously, if you unpick it and if you read it in its original language and you see through the translation, you will see how profound it is. And if you read it over a period of years, you will understand how profound it is. And particularly if you read it after you've read the rest of the Risale and you understand that you are ajiz. If you don't understand that you are ajiz, you can't love. That love will somehow be tainted. Because to understand you are ajiz, it says, Allah, your heart has to break in order for Allah to enter, right? I don't know who said it, but it always resonated with me. Your heart has to break. How does your heart break? Your heart breaks by realizing that you don't have anything. I thought that I was this, I thought that I was that, I thought I was strong, I thought I was clever, I thought I was brilliant, all of these things. When you realize that you're none of those things, that breaks your heart. And when your heart breaks and you say, yes, I'm ajiz, then Allah enters. So if you're reading something like this without sidq, and you can only be sadiq if you're sincere, and you can only be sincere if you know how to love. And if you don't, then this remains just a very, pleasant read, but it doesn't dig down deep. And so we go on with the surface understanding, and we go on calling everyone akhi, the whole akhi syndrome, akhi this, akhi that, and yet the brotherhood is all artifice and all on the surface. This is why it says innamal mu'minuna ikhwa. It doesn't say innamal muslimuna ikhwa. Brotherhood comes from belief, shared belief, and belief is contingent upon knowing that you are ajiz and faqir, not just knowing it intellectually, but actually internalizing it. That's the only way that you're going to get any benefit from this treatise, to be honest, in my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Colin Hocam. Just as a kind reminder, brothers, feel free to share your comments and insights in the chat box, or you can raise your hands to articulate it. Thank you very much. So, Colin Hocam, it reminds me also, these are all interrelated, and Ustad give a lot of emphasis on the entire Risale Nur collection. Ikhlas, as you said, sincerity. Uhuwe, the brotherhood, tesanud, like cooperation, and muhabbe, like love. These four things is like a pillars of his service, maybe we can say. And if we are not really sincere, as Harun Hocam mentioned, I mean, we can say hi to brother, salam alaikum, but if it's not coming like from deep on your heart, it doesn't turn into action to help your brother, or it doesn't have kind of a good, strong cooperation and brotherhood, which Allah wants. And if we look at it, the time of the Asr Saad, at the time of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, how sincere they were, how helpful they are. And that was the foundation of the community. And they were, we say, Asr Saadat is like best, maybe happiest community came at the time of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is amazing. And anyone who would like to say, please, Hikmet Hocam or any brothers, you can share your insights. I want to also underline, sometimes Ustad says, man's arrogance and self-worship cause him to be unjustly hostile towards believers without his being aware of it. He supposes himself to be right. So I think this nefis perest in the original text is being translated as self-worship. So a person can be on the side of the nefis or on the side of a haq. So if we are really truthful and sincere, we should not deviate ourselves on the side of our nefs desire, because that one is damaging our connection, like, actually masking our true love to the brother. So can we a little bit elaborate, Harun Hocam, how arrogance and nefis perest is impacting our life between the brothers?
Yeah, that's a great topic and spot, I would say. And it's obvious that all the problems actually arise from nafs. And arrogance, obviously, it's state of nafs, I can say. Gurur, right? Arrogance. So gurur means I trust myself too much. I don't communicate, or I don't come to decision with istishari or sharing thoughts with fellows, so it's just self-obedience. I may be so intelligent, so rational, this and that, but still individual cannot, that's the creation. Allah wants us to be connected in order to even solve our own problems. I cannot solve my own problem myself. I should be aware of this. And this brings states. It's opposite to being arrogant, actually. So yeah, and the self-worship point, of course, that means if I'm in self, I'm a nefis perest, I'm favoring my nefs, that means I cannot be just. And that's the core, actually. If I cannot be just favoring myself, that means that's the core. I cannot be fair or just to anything else. So that's the root to dissolve. But if I see, even with my enemy, a rightness, that means actually that's kind of I have my struggle with my nefs, because I can submit the truth even if I see this in the hands of my enemy. So that's a very good quality, obviously. And that's a sign that I'm not self-worshipping in this case. I'm favoring what is right, regardless of my community, regardless of this right arises in my community or out of my community. That's the true attachment, actually. So yes, I think that's That's all. And if this persists actually, as mentioned here, then it's kind of I'm valuing little bits, tiny, stones compared to mountains, which are the facts, which are the truths. Like Islam, like Sidq, like, reality. So that means I am choosing myself compared to this type of realities.
Thank you very much, Harun Hocam. Colin Hocam, would you like to add anything on this paragraph?
I think it just, well, just to corroborate what Harun said, but I think it goes back to this notion of if you don't realize your ajz, and not just as a concept, but as a reality, then you will have arrogance. Because if you think you own something and it belongs to you, then you want to use it and you want to rely on it. So, I say God gave me intellect. I will trust my intellect. I will trust my own reason. This is arrogance because he's given an intellect, but it's not mine. And it has to be used in a particular way. It has to be used in a discerning way. I have to resort to the criterion before I can use my intellect. My intellect can't be unguided by revelation. An intellect that is not guided by revelation goes wherever my nafs wants it to go. There's a very interesting surah that a recent Quran circle in Surah Nisa. I can't remember the number, but it talks about that society is full of different sources of news and rumors and gossip, and we came to the conclusion that it's actually describing today's world where everyone is an expert, every place is a source of news. Social media is just this huge mishmash of different news sources, spreading propaganda, spreading lies, spreading mistruths, discord, all of these things. And it says that you need to have recourse to the Prophet and also to Ulul Amr. And the verse before talks about the Quran. If you look at the Quran and you try to find any contradiction in it, you won't see any. In other words, the Quran has to be our furqan, it has to be our criterion. Now, arrogance and self-worship come from a nafs which, even if you're a believer, you may be arrogant and you may have self-worship. Actually, Muslims are not immune to this. If we don't realize that we're ajiz and faqir, or if we just, oh, we've read it, so it must be true, but if we don't internalize it, if we don't live it, then this arrogance and self-worship, in other words, this inability to give up and abandon our ownership will cause all of these ailments, discord, strife in society.
Thank you very much, Colin Hocam. In the next paragraph, Ustad also mentioned how opposite the law and enmity, and how it should be towards our Muslim brothers, and how we can use this law and enmity towards, let's say, non-Muslims. I mean, can we elaborate a little bit, like how should we understand this one, Harun Hocam?
I think we shouldn't take it as non-Muslims in the first place. I think Ustad Nursi is very careful with wording. Actually, I was mentioning this. He has very strong background here, and he has his terminology and everything fixed. So he uses Ehl Dalalet, and we know he defines what udul is, right? Even I remember in Işaret-ül İcaz treatise, he defines udul, as just diverging from reality, hakikat. So that means Ehl Dalalet actually in the highest sense is the ones that just stray from reality. And that makes sense, And at this point we can be careful actually, since these words like Muslim, non-Muslim, these are very shallow definitions even these days, so we should be careful with that. In other words, I might be, straying from reality. At that point, you cannot agree with me. You cannot appreciate what I'm doing in terms of straying from reality. So at this point, definitely, I thought about this a lot. Like, this is not a binary distinction, like Muslims, quote unquote, versus non-Muslims. This is a huge, very firm separation, which is not meant here, what I understand. This is again very intervened because the society is very mixed. And with the objective of this treaty is actually we can perceive most of the non-Muslims as potential Muslims, which are not aware of Islamic facts, I say. So with that, actually, we can say the persons who are seeking for the truth versus the people who are evil. That means they are really deliberately spreading misinformation, spreading lies, doing tyranny, zulm. I think these are foremost the people of Ehli Dalale we can describe at this age. So whoever fits in, that means I am enemy of them. But again, being careful that enmity should be based on the attributes like tyranny, spreading misinformation, and so forth. But if a person is embodied, source of misinformation, source of tyranny, obviously I'm hating him or her, because of that, So at that point, that means the enmity is really rooted in my heart, and the love is kind of addressed here. I am not touching him as long as he doesn't just be aggressive, just attack me. But otherwise, of course, we're expecting every Muslim to be on the truthful side. As long as it is, that means I have true love for Muslims, That means my enmity is not in the real sense. That means I have compassion because although he submits himself to be Muslim, he is not behaving like Muslim and looks like his problems, and he's kind of admitting, but he cannot, change his behaviors in short time. I mean, assuming this is the hypothesis, In that state, of course, I kind of have compassion and I pray, that, my brother, sister can just get rid of this type of, deficiencies so that he or she really is a sincere Muslim in this case. So at that point, my feeling of envy is just feeling of pity and feeling of compassion. Yeah, I mean, around these things, that's how I think about it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Harun Hocam. Thanks also for correcting the phrase instead of using Muslim, non-Muslim, using the people of misguidance or maybe deviated. But we could be also sometimes deviating from the truth, and we have to ask always Sirat Mustaqim, right? And also,
Right. And I cannot agree with you if I see you are straying. All I can do is tell you, hey, Mustafa, you are straying. Be careful. I
yes.
love you because you're submitting yourself, but looks like based on my understanding of Quran and Sunnah at that point, I cannot agree or I cannot walk with you at that point.
Yes, excellent point. Thank you very much. Kolin Hocam, would you like to add anything on this point?
No, I don't really have much to add, except I agree this binary of Muslim and non-Muslim is the cause of a lot of trouble, the cause of a lot of misunderstanding, and it's capitalized on by those who are truly astray. Because what it does, it divides people, where actually there are maybe as many internal divisions within Muslims as there are external divisions. And so it's not helpful, really. And also it's a fiqhi convention. And Ustad is talking about Iman and sort of very profound issues to do with Iman. So when he talks about Islam, he talks about Islam as a concept in a conceptual way. He's not talking about the fiqhi conventions of who is Muslim and who is not.
Yes. Thank you very much, Kolin Hocam. And also, I think in the summary part, Ustad also mentions love, brotherhood, and affection are the basic to Islam. And within the community, like Muslims, among Muslims, or when we look at like from, interaction with different religions, studies, I think, resembling those people of enmity, a spoiled child who wants to cry, or trying to find an excuse, like something very insignificant. Ustad refers here as a like fly swing, to make an argument or maybe to bring like a point of the enmity. So I think we should not be maybe pessimistic on this topic. Inshallah, we are hopeful, but we should not ignore the fact that sometimes, brother has a lot of good deeds, but because of the one wrong thing, a person easily cross that brother out. So this is really hurting the communities, I think, in everywhere. Is there anything who would like to, add from our, guest speakers, Hikmet Hocam or anyone, or Harun Hocam, Colin Hocam, about this? We have so many bonds, which makes our relationship stronger, but still there's also these people where they bring like enmity, like a spoiled child.
I think this point is very important also. The key word is hüsnü. And I think this is also related with the perspective. I think Ustad encourages us, as long as you can feel love, as long as you can have the perspective of hüsnü, look everything from a good perspective, in other words, that should be the norm. And actually, that brings us not to generate conspiracy theories. Like, this is very easy, right? We are saying that, hey, look at him, he is non-Muslim. Look at him, he's this and that. So for this reason, he will be contrary to Muslims. He will be, these are all presets and or pretexts, false assumptions. Of course, as long as there is no evidence. What I'm saying is suizan, which is opposite of, having a good perspective, brings conspiracy theories. And we know this type of conspiracies actually kill social relationships and also divides society in a very terrible way. I think there are a lot of consequences we see because of us not, having a firm perspective mentioned here, having hüsnü.
Yeah, thank you very much, Harun Hocam. Colin Hocam, or anyone who would like to say about this topic, please feel free to share. If not, maybe we can move to the next part.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
I'm having difficulty to wrap up my thoughts, but I just want to say a few words, inshallah. It was very helpful, alhamdulillah, but the reflections of the brothers that opened up a window to my mind. Now, when we read the statements like the time for enmity and hostility is finished, I was like, alhamdulillah, Ustad never cuts his hope from Allah's mercy. But, to me, it was just hopeful statements. And we make dua for this. And, but, we don't really see it yet, still, right? And, but when brothers made the connection to ana, the nafs, right? What I understood from it is, my takeaway is, when as a person, as an individual, when I understand that my ana is nothing, now the only blessing that Allah gave us is this collective ubudiyya as humanity, which responds to Allah's uluhiyya. So I'm only worth existence because I'm accepting my being nothing as an individual, but just this blessing of being a reflection to Allah's names as the whole humanity. And Prophet ﷺ was the most precious because he was blessed with representing this whole meaning, even getting to the Miraj. So again, maybe the act of the humanity is all around here and there. It's not maybe still not reflecting this totally, but especially as the following sentence comes: the time for enmity and hostility is finished. Two world wars have shown enmity to be evil, destructive, and awesome wrong. But almost the collective personality of humanity gets this truth. Still maybe we have some deviations, but as they established the United Nations, this and that after the Second World War, etc., we at least understand that we can only exist as humanity. We are not like separate entities. We are not like, we cannot be indifferent to each other's affairs. Either we are gonna make it as whole humanity, or it's gonna be end of all of us. So this reality is kind of again, still maybe we might have some deviations, but it is understood by the kind of the collective personality in a way. That was my takeaway. And also, for example, about the truth, right? The truth. Again, there's so many different thoughts and ideologies and different opinions and so deviations and strange thoughts out there. And where's the haq? Where's the truth? But again, the core point comes to that: if I accept that I myself is not able to find the truth, but it's only the divine guidance, and I'm owned by him, and he shows us the path, this is the only way to find the truth. So unless I leave it to him, I'm not even able to guide myself. So it's also very meaningful to me. Thank you for the brothers bringing it out. And when I make the connection, now the larger sphere even gets more hopeful in a way. And eventually, for sure, the humanity will reject those false ideologies that doesn't match to his futra, is the way that Allah created us. Maybe our social life, our political life, whatever, it's so full of lies, but eventually they're all destined to be erased, nullified at the end, all those lies. If the truth is there, that the lies will not prevail at all. We should be sure about this. And this is this could be understood with our futra, and again accepting the divine guidance. For myself, it was very confusing because again, if you go 100 years ago, ask anybody in any continent, in any culture, in any society, from any religion, in a way, about the true and false, and sin and good deeds, and all those are like kind of differentiated. But now in society we see that they are all mixed up, like at the time of Jahiliyyah. So for sure this will not go for long. Again, the humanity should come back to the divine guidance, knowing that by my ene I'm not able to find the truth. It could not be like, this is my opinion, so it is my truth. No, there's one truth, and it's only decreed by our maker. Thank you so much.
Baykarabi, thank you very much. As you said, there was a lot of confusion in our society, but Alhamdulillah, Ustad Bediüzzaman Said Nursi with the Risale-i Nur is making like kind of a diagnosis of all these things and giving us like a remedy, like antibiotics of our social problems. And this is like the brotherhood, the concept is very deep. I mean, Ustad started with few ayah at the beginning of this session, but now we see that it's going like in very fine tuning, correcting how we should also use this terminology, because a little change can make a very distorted meaning and also can hurt the feelings. So may Allah also give us a guidance and true application of these rules within our life. I would like to read the next small part. If no one has any other comments, inshallah, we can carry on. Yes, I think we have, let me check the chat box, and I think we have one message in the chat box. When brother also send a message, I would like to read it. Modern psychology advises us to look at positive aspects, points in our life and our relationship instead of focusing on negative points, encouraging us to forgive people doing bad to us. Um, and but I don't know what their basis is exactly. So is it possible to argue that modern psychology has to be affected by the Islamic perspective?
Has been
So
affected.
yes, has been affected by the Islamic perspective. So Harun Hocam, would you like to make some comments on this question?
Yeah, I think CA, I don't know whoever asked. Yeah, I think I do agree, and I think anything it's very related with this treatise, take it and love it, as long as it is meaningful, it makes sense, it is positive. So if modern psychology part of it tells us to adopt this perspective, yes, we know that it is Islamic, and this is something universal. So they don't have to cite that, this is taken from Quran or this and that. So it is universal. And we do agree with psychology at this point, and we should appreciate psychology at this point because it is serving the same purpose. Just, yeah, I would say that.
Thank you very much, Harun Hocam. Colin Hocam, would you like to add anything about the point of modern psychology as being
Yeah,
impacted?
I have huge problems with modern psychology. Modern psychology is a substitute religion, and if it occasionally hits the truth, I mean, everything has grains of truth in it. So, I mean, I can't really answer the question because I'm not sure what the questioner. I think the questioner is a sister, not a brother. Um, uh, encouraging us to forgive people doing bad things, that has to be contextualized because while we are encouraged to make excuses for our believing brothers if they do bad things to us, and Ostad goes through this whole process of what we have to do if we are hurt by something bad that's been done to us by a believing brother or sister. First, you have to deduct the share of qadar, then you have to deduct the interference of that person's nafs. You have to deduct a share for shaitan. You have to deduct a share for your own soul and all of these things. But I don't think we have a blanket a blanket diktat from Islam to forgive everything. Some people are unable to forgive. This is why we have qisas. So forgiving on in what context, on what level, and which strand of psychology are we talking about? There are lots of different strands of modern psychology. There's Freudian psychology, Jungian psychology, so many different levels and so many different strands and approaches. And some of them are aligned with Islamic psycho-spiritual understanding, and some are not. I would argue mostly it's not. So we have to be very careful. We can't just say because modern psychology advises us to do this and to do that, then we can accept it. No, you can say that Islam unites with modern psychology, or modern psychology unites with Islam on this, because no no system, no discipline, no subject can be completely wrong. There will always be some grains of truth in it. Even if you read Hitler's Mein Kampf, you will see that there are grains of truth in it. So I don't think that this question is answerable until we know what the questioner means by forgiveness and which strand of psychology is being questioned here.
Thank you very much. I think the question needs more clarification, as Colin Hocam you mentioned. And one brother, Ferhat Fatih, raised his hands. Could you please unmute and tell us? So, Brother Ferhat, you're unmuted. So, okay. So, can you hear us?
Maybe he did mistakenly.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
yes,
can you?
I can hear you. Do you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you for letting me add something. First of all, relating with modern psychology, I think the target of their psychology is important here. I mean, uh, as a science, psychology, the target of it is the human itself. But forgiveness in Islam, the target is for the sake of God. So it's too much different here. I mean, when in psychology, if they claim that if you forgive someone, it might be a kind of refreshing, relieving yourself. It's a kind of justification, a kind of technique. But in Islam, forgiveness for the sake of God, also as Ustad Colin explains in some with some aspects, the purpose is God itself. So here is, I think it's different. What I want to say is not this. I just want to say my reflection for the whole lesson as a whole. I think Ustad Said Nursi knows himself well, and also he knows Satan well, as he says that I was in a battle with Satan and myself for a long period, and I could defeat both of them. So it's just like a person that visited an island and he came back from that island and gave us information that you want to visit the same island. So he knows the all weakness of humanity and their direction that Satan wants to attack us. So we see that when you read, I speak, when I read for the first time, I think this is not enough because I realized this is specialized for me. He just talks about one of my weakness, as here he talks about brotherhood. Maybe sometimes you want to do something for the sake of yourself, or there is not enough ikhlas in your work. So, sincerely speaking, Nursi knows humanity well because of working with himself first, then trying to stick to the others. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ferhat Hocam. Very great insights. Yeah, I mean, is psychology, the reference point or their intention could be very diverse. There might be some sincere people, but as the reference point we have is the Quran and the Sunnah, we know it's just to please Allah, although some of the practices or rules we may not thoroughly comprehend to understand, but we know that it's to please Allah. But those psychology people, as you said, Ferhat Hocam, also maybe for the nefs pleasure or someone's maybe individual interest, but it cannot be compared. And I remember that and many years back, when we have our first child, we were looking, oh, what's the best way to raise a kids? So this psychology or people like they're giving a lot of advices, but these are trial and errors. but we have almost 1,400 years of history, Islamic history or Islamic psychology based on Quran and Sunnah. So that's the true one. But of course, as Colin Hocam also mentioned, that there might be some truths of elements of truth in them, but it's maybe scattered, so we might get lost at the end. I think we are almost there. So if we don't have any, I think, final comments, inshallah, we can, finish here. Okay, I think I would like to make a dua. Inshallah, we can finalize. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Wa akhiru da'wahum alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Al-Fatiha.